Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending where you are looking from. Thank you to be with us. Today, the team asked me to speak about the relationship we had with a brand who was meaning like initials, and initials, who at the beginning was a creative agency more specialized in making books and making magazines and photos and art direction on this. And they called themselves Associated Computer Nerd Enterprise, which was already offering the sense of humor that these people have. And they wanted to change the name to Ambition to Create Novel Expressions. And it means the research of a new way of trying to communicate, to exchange, to share. ACNE Studio in Stockholm. ACNE Studios have been created by friends, and one of these was, and he is still, the art director, is Johnny Johansson, with a team that grows. The concept was to try to find a way to communicate in a different way. The target is really about sharing something shift. The first time I received a call, I went to Stockholm. In Stockholm, I arrived with this beautiful northern light. I arrived in a city that I didn't know. I've seen the museum then, the houses, the river, the castle, the church. And went to the hotel and then went to see, in an office, it was an old bank, which was quite strange. And now it's been transformed in a school. Now they move to an ex-embassy from a country from the east, totally in concrete and very brutalism. It's amazing work that Mr. Johannes Fastholm have done to work on this new office. Anyhow, arrive and meet Johnny. And the first thing he said that he wanted us to work with him in collaboration and to work on presentation. Let's begin by saying what are the specificity of a presentation, which is very different than from the shows. A show during the fashion week is every hour or every hour and a half. So there is like a path, a promenade where all the tribes of fashion is moving from one city to another, but in the city from one space and one venue, one show to another. A show duration is 12, 15, 17 minutes. Okay. They are late most of the time. But you have a presentation as something static and something that you are doing for 2 or 3 hours to be able to allow the people you want to invite to go from one show to your presentation and then to the other show. It means that you don't know when they're live. You don't know exactly at what time, how many people you will have. And on the other side, these people have to be able in maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to see the whole collection, to understand and to desire it. So the trick, the exercise of the presentation is even more complicated than the show itself. We made the first presentation, I think, in New York. And for that, with Johannes, he gave me some ideas to try to find something raw and make it interesting, some kind of installation. So it was not at all talking about art. It was talking about a day-to-day life. It was talking about a vision and something that haven't been seen. So I went to work on sheetrock and try to cut the sheetrock and paint the sheetrock in strange shapes. And doing this, I began to understand something about ACNE, which was a kind of way of shifting a material from taking something very cheap and making something interesting, astonishing, something that's make a little stop in your mind, something of luxury in a way. And though we begin by doing this installation, and then I think that it was interesting to work on the seat, the chairs, the benches. So that's why we made some benches which were open front, with light inside, and with some printed paper made by the M&M, one of the best ever graphists. And other we took cardboard and tried to shape cardboard in a way of a stool, or we took a roll of carpet of 2 meters and cut it in 4, so 50 centimeter, which is almost a small stool and a chair, and we recovered after with the plastic designed by the M&M. The seat were very always interesting to work in different material, i.e. we took a foam from the use for the soundproofing, this foam with this kind of little heels, and we made it like a stool covered by that. Step by step, we arrived to try to make furnitures which are very punctual but very questioning. And that was something about ACNE here. Material, using material that's cheap, make them luxury, try to create for people a kind of experience. Making kind of experience, well, this discussion with Johnny once. When Johnny asked me, Thierry, you quite understand what ACNE is, it seems. And he looked at me and said, what is ACNE? And I said to him, I don't know what ACNE is. I know the implicity. I know where the curve, I don't know what ACNE is not. But what ACNE is, I can't tell you. I just tell you, maybe taking poor things and usual material and making luxury, that's one thing, but it's a lot of shapes, there's a lot of organic shapes, there's all of unexpected, there's a lot of shift. I don't know what ACNE is. And he was laughing, saying, I'm the same than you. I know where I don't want to go. I exactly know where I don't want to go, but I don't know where I want to go. And that was a very interesting new way of making a definition of a brand which doesn't have a human name, but a joke somewhere. So, presentation. We begin by the presentation in one of them, Paris, and like little touch of these shapes and materials. And then, because everything around us was talking about surveillance and about, we're thinking, and on the other side, because ACNE was also very about using and working on images, so why don't we use CCTV surveillance? And then we make a presentation where you arrive, you have a big wall with a lot of shape of images, all the images are different, all are connected to what's happening in another room. In the other room, there's a model passing by, and when they pass by, they are shooted by a lot of different cameras, all working, all like 1970s, 80s, 90s, 2000 shape of cameras, which are as light involved in the set. And then these images, which are most of the time at the beginning black and white, then after kind of colors, and after good colors, were projected on this big first wall you discover when you go in the room. And then when the presentation is finished, one after the other, the models go and pose in front of this image. So there are all the models at the end with all the image of an empty space. Because there is no one on the other room then, or only the audience. And we also put a camera outside to try to have one of the images of what's happening in the street. It was a way of shifting the interest. So the audience was coming back and forth. So if they come at the middle, they still have half of the model in front of them, and then they go in the other room and they see what was on the image first. The experience was pretty appreciated. So we pushed a little bit further, And I went to say, well, why don't we try to be in a school? And we try to go in a school, and we try to shift now the utilization of people, i.e., there's a runway, there will be a riser, but on the riser it's a model, and on the runway will be our guest. So when the guests arrive, and here we were in a venue scouting. My Eyesight team was a beautiful venue called Jussieu. It's a university which have been built on pilotis on the 70s. So there were these pilotis, the building on the top, and then you have this empty space open with a garden on the side, and the floor with a concrete work as a mosaic, which is exquisite. The traction of the ceiling is made by traction in wood. So you have this wood, concrete, metal pillows, very interesting space and proportion. So the audience were coming. They were coming in the backstage. They see the backstage empty almost, with some hair and makeup people, some dresser waiting. And they go on a line, and at the top of the line, there is Jun-san, who was with his stopwatch, not sending every 8, 9, 10, 12 seconds as on the show, but every 4, 5 seconds, and asking everyone, you can go, you can go. Audience, journalists, they go, they walk on stairs, they arrive on the runway where there's these other journalists looking on their right, because on the right there was risers with all the models looking. The music was playing. So suddenly the music stopped. The models stand up and applaud the audience, and one of them leave and go back on the line with the audience. And then when he arrived, because it was a man presentation at the beginning, Jun sent him, he's walking his way, he's faster, crossing the audience. That was quite funny, and Johnny enjoyed it. People had the opportunity to see the whole collection very fast, and at the same time, they were having some kind of experience of entertainment. But not an entertainment who is asking the question behind that, asking the question, who is the one on the stage? Is that the audience? Is that the models in reality? After doing that, just speaking about the presentation to begin, I was like saying, okay, why don't we go even further? I received a brief coming from Johnny, the assistant to the head of communication, to the production, to me, saying, well, Johnny would like to have a very long runway. So production make a scouting of spaces where we could have a runway of 70, 100 meters, which is like 30, it's 90 feet, it's like 100 feet. It's long, very long. 200 feet, 300 feet mostly, 300 feet long. So I came in Stockholm with two files. One big files with a lot of venue they found who could accept a runway from a straight runway by 100 meters, 110 meters. And a very small file was my idea. The way the meeting was, that I was going in Stockholm though, from Stockholm to the hotel, leave my things, go to dinner with Johnny. Sometimes Johnny alone, sometimes with his family, as I went to his house on the fjord. It's beautiful, simple, but so exquisite. And then, otherwise, we had the communication people with us. This time we were alone. And being alone, we have this lovely dinner talking about our life. We exchanged every week or every 2 weeks, anyhow, messages. And he saw the two files, said, what are they? He said, this one is what you ask. This one is what I would like to propose. He said, what is in the small one? He said, you don't want to begin on the big one. I said, no, big one, I know, I'm asking, but what is the small one? And I said, well, the small one is the concept, which is what I really love it, and I think it's really ACNE. So he looked at me saying, so you know what ACNE is? And I said, we'll begin again. That was the idea of making a lecture of history of art. Renting a real amphitheater for lecture and lessons, and asking to a professor, a very high-level art history professor, to make free lecture of a real duration, 45 minutes, with a real break of 12 minutes between each, 12 to 15. And after this free lecture, which are all three different, you have the history arrived from whatever we know to today on one item. And the item was from self-portrait to the selfie. Self-portrait of the first representation of yourself, which was the red hand on the wall of the first man. And then you arrive to Velasquez. Why he's representing himself on the back, why he have this reflection on a mirror with a decoration that in reality he didn't have. The rapport between the self-portrait, i.e. of Rembrandt, which are very calm when you see them in evolution, to self-portrait of Picasso, or self-portrait of Giacometti. When it says Picasso, it's very noisy, brilliant. You have... So that was to arrive to Warhol, to arrive to the contemporary art, which is using absolutely a lot of self-portrait, and mostly used by selfie. And today, which is day-to-day, how many people are making selfies every day? It was very interesting. Then let me think about it. Let's talk tomorrow, because the day after, in the morning, early morning, I go to their office around 8 a.m., and in the office we have a kind of breakfast. Around the table you have Michael, the CEO, the head of communication, the head of marketing, you have the styling, you have the collection coordinator, all these people around the table, which was very democratic in a way. And so I begin to explain the 120 runway, blah, blah, and then Johnny asked me, you have another idea? Say yes, and I present this idea. Everybody on the communication was looking at me and said, Thierry, you're totally mad, you're an idiot. How come you propose that to fashion people? For a presentation, you have only 10, 15 minutes. You have to run to the next show. So they won't stay. And I said, well, by the definition of the presentation, you're right. But it's a special brand here. And people are expecting, I think, real content from ACNE Studios. So how do we bring this content? And on the other side, I think also that people are a bit fed up back and forth. I think that people, and the people we are showing to, request a real content, request to learn something. They'd be happy to learn something, and not learn something that in an arrogant way at all, in a very simple way, like a school. You know, the professor is the professor. So, after saying that I was insane, asking questions about how people can see the collection, and explaining, well, during the lecture, models are coming, walking on the ceramic table, going down, going after outside on a long corridor where you have cubes, white cubes, with numbers, and then one after the other, they stay on each of the cube until the last model arrive. They stay here 3, 4, 5 minutes, and then when somebody from the production going to tell them to go, and they come back in the backstage. So when somebody arrive late, or not at time, there is no late, there is no time, there is no only 3 hours, then they can see the part of the collection, and then they can come inside and see this model walking on a ceramic table. When I spoke about the concept to friends of mine, which are made at university, what I never done, last life, and then they were all laughing, saying, well, that's our dream to be able to walk on this table during the lesson. End of the meeting, Johnny said, okay, let's do it. We done it. What is amazing is that on 600 people who came for these 3 hours, 600 to 650, you have maybe 30, 35 people who stayed 10 minutes. You had maybe 35, 40 people who stay the free lecture. Most of them stay for 1 or 1.5. 1.5, how we calculate that? I say they can arrive at the middle of one and they're going to stay to hear the middle of the other one or the end of the other one. Most of them, the grand majority saw one full. that was a very appreciated experience, because it was not arrogant, it was not big set, it was just, you see the collection, but you learn something about the portrait of Van Gogh with no ears, or the old portrait of Cézanne, or the last portrait of Vuillard, who belongs to Monsieur Saint Laurent. It was about the 18th century portrait, the Fayum portrait, which was not self-portrait really, but to represent yourself as you're beautiful, for everybody has this image of you later, who was after put on the sarcophage. End of the day, that show was a very big success. Locally, but a big success. So we move, and I went also to the next one. And I said, the next one, I have to be a little bit more simple. So I proposed also to rent a school, the last level of a very old 18th century school in Paris, in the Marais. They had this beautiful long room. When you see the ceiling, the roof, the wooden, the walls are old. Everything seems to be clean in a way, no dust, but old, used as a school. On the windows, I put colors to create kind of questioning and something light, something beautiful, something who could be more fresh. And then on the right of the room, you have a path, an alley for the audience. And on the 2/3 of the room, you had an empty space where we had put 40 to 50 chairs, which are these metal and wood chairs that every school in the world almost have. And on these chairs, models sitting or standing, but they have no chair, or hanging. Everybody's sitting their way. I put them on position. Production have made a beautiful work in recreating all this mood. The audience were coming, music was playing. So they can see close one to the other and see a progression, but they can really feel the connection between the different pieces of the collection. Then at a moment T, I was on my intercom saying, stop music. The music stopped, all the models stand up, and you remember this game. This was like the dancing chair, that when the musical chair, when the music was playing, 7 chairs in the middle, 8 people turning, then you try to seat one left, take a chair away, etc. Here, we didn't take the chair away, but here, the models, when the music stopped, stand up and take their chairs and put the chairs on the floor. This noise is like the noise of a shark on the blackboard. This noise that everybody had in the head when he was in school. And so the music will begin, and wherever they are, they have to sit down or to retake position. And the music goes until the next time. The duration of it was a total organic way for me to say, when I see there is enough people, or when there is suddenly somebody hyper important for the brand arriving, or when Michael come to me and say, well, there is these buyers, recognizable. So it was very something during 3 hours, which is a real collaboration, which is the goal, anyhow. So this said, behind this idea was not only to see, not only to live an experience, not only to have an emotion, but also that people could take their photos, if there stays enough, with a match of the collection different each time, like a different styling. And that was super appreciated, because the Instagram were, wow, a lot. Presentation, we made quite a lot of them. If you look to the show itself, the shows, which were at the beginning for women, went inside an idea of how to twist, to keep the idea how to twist the material. Put this color diffusing on the windows is also a way, because of the projection of that, like a glass window on the floor, of twisting a material. Having these chairs is twisting a material. On the shows, I went through 2 ideas. One was how we work if we had 2 space, And the other one, well, the question, how we work, how we make luxury was, again, simple material. One was chicken net. You have chicken net in metal and chicken net in copper. Working on the chicken net to create a ceiling on the room, which was made by these two mixed chicken nets, then you light it in a very warm way. It looked like lava when the light were moving slowly, create shadows and the warmth. And then when you light it with a very cold, very daylight, very white, then it looked like ice. So when the audience was coming in the room, they were looking to this ceiling. We were changing from the lava side to the ice side. So it's already washing their brain for what they saw before by something who looked luxury and beautiful. And then the show begins. You try to forget a little bit the ceiling to concentrate on the show. Just after that show on the same venue, we had, they accept the idea of trying to work on the frustration as an experience. People arrive, there's a big curtain with this thick plastic that you cannot see through. It's a plastic as the one you have in the butcher, you know? And so the middle, the space of the runway with heat in both sides, so the people on one side couldn't see the other side. When the show began, rhythm of the show, blackout, music, light in the middle, begin to have some clothes coming back and forth, very colorful, but people couldn't see. They just see colors walking back and forth. So the frustration, to a point, we were expecting that with Johnny. People were talking, who are they to think like this? We come here to see a collection. And after 40 seconds, 45 seconds, which is long for a show, all these plastic went up to the ceiling, liberating a beautiful, pure white runway, and the collection that's continued to show. But in reality, the 5-6 first pieces were not in the collection. They were used as color to attract the eye. The way we played from frustration to happiness, that was quite a funny moment. In the separation of space, it began by an hotel particulier place where they have two big salons. And I was speaking with Johnny about these two salons, saying that it'd be very interesting to try to make two shows at the same moment. But these two shows are, by the way, the same collection. You don't have to double it. We have 40 looks with 40 models. The look 1 to 40 will be looked on one room at the same moment. The look 21 to 40, then 1 to 20 will be shown in the second room with the same music. People will not see the difference until the end, where we make outside, in the trees, in the garden of this venue, a beautiful long runway, purely white, perfectly horizontal, with a model from 1 to 40 standing, waiting to take your selfie. The idea was accepted. So when the model number 1 went in the first room, the model 21 began on the other room. Put risers, all in plywood of recuperation, very clean, but the level of the riser were wider to be able to have somebody seated and a space for a model to walk. So the model was walking in front of everybody and then leave down and go backstage, in reality go on the lineup for the second room. So it means that the first row could see only the close one time, but the fourth row could see 4 times. So we invert the importance of the row just by playing with the way we have the models walking. After the end of this show, Johnny was in the middle with me. He went make the salutation on one side, salutation on the second side, and wait. And then we went to the window. You have all the audience taking images of these beautiful models, all on this long stage, white stage, under the trees. It was a very funny, good moment. Then, as far as we work on these two spaces, we ask ourselves, how can we work another time on two spaces. The last big show we made before the virus was one in the carousel where my will was to separate the room in two with some kind of translucid, corrugated, it's not really plastic, it's something of recuperation too. And so you could have the men show on one side, the women show on the other side, and by walking you see something happening on the other side, but you couldn't see the shape. So the people interested in men and interested professionally in men's fashion was one side, and the other side with the women. Then after discussion with all the team, they decide to have a wall in the center, a solid wall on the top of which you have a big circle of mirror, and the big circle of mirror was bending very slowly from one side to another during the show. It means that people can see that something is happening on the other side. Most of the time with the angle you see more the other audience than the models, but the goal was not to see the models. So basically, here we had again a show separation in two rooms. It just was a way to shift again the sensation and the experience of everyone. I don't think after all these years we worked together, there's a lot of other stuff we made, but I'm not sure. The most important is to understand how every material, I mean, we research for being able to build this image of the type of shows, specifically ACNE Studios. In this kind of set, you cannot put somebody else. It won't work. In this kind of light too. It's something which has to be, at the same time, hyper-definite. And at the same time, pretty supple to be able to go one time in the plywood and another side in the kind of plastic and the other side in time of grass, but we will never use grass. It's something which is too natural for the ACNE kind of landscape. Yeah, conclusion will be that Johnny created a kind of art of shifting. Thank you so much.